Previously, on 1 Minute Rundown, Octrinity used to review his games in peace. But at some point, the producer snapped and tried to sabotage his show by having him killed. Several extra lives later, Octrinity had enough of this, and traveled several hundred miles to get his revenge, an occasion both of them considered so serious that they borrowed a courtroom and hired an actual narrator to explain the story so far. Find out what happens next, now.
Court is now in session.
The prosecution is ready, Your Honor.
Right. The defense is also ready, Your Honor.
Mr. Producer, can you please give us your opening statement?
Sure, Your Honor. We're here because the defendant, Octrinity, thought he could beat me in a turnabout trial. That's why we're here.
And Mr. Trinity, what is your take on this?
I guess that's more or less it. Look, I'm not used to a scene like this, and we're still in a game review show. Do you mind if I do my opening statement in that style instead?
Well, what do you think, Mr. Producer?
I see no harm in that.
Well then, in that case...
Gaming reviews done quick. Call forth your witnesses and show them the 1 Minute Rundown. I'm Octrinity, your host, and I'm fine. Okay, that doesn't make me feel better. Apollo, you got something more to teach me. Anyway, this time we're running down Ace Attorney. In these games, you play the role of a defense attorney, usually Phoenix Wright, in an age where criminal trials happen very quickly and where prosecutors aren't above manipulating the facts in order to suit their case. So you have the exceedingly difficult task of proving your guy didn't do it. They're typically played in two alternating parts. You have an investigation phase where you bounce between locations, chatting with whoever's around and collecting information and evidence, and then you have the courtroom phase, which usually breaks down to being presented with testimony and pointing out the contradictions, with a liberal amount of actual pointing. These games have acquired a very sizable following thanks to their excellent writing, mixing together drama, humor, and suspense, as well as characters who are, in a word, special. We've put 7 games on trial for you. You have the information you need now, so the defense is ready, Your Honor. Usually I'm pretty so-so on the visual novel genre, since I don't find there to be much gameplay involved and find point-and-click adventure games frustrating if the solutions get too obscure. These games, however, get a pass from me because it's done in such a way that you're figuring out the stories along with the characters, and written in such a way that your assumptions about the case, and for that matter the characters taking part in it, will change frequently. The story will be the main attraction, and that story covers Phoenix's first year as an attorney before diving headfirst into what's up with the prosecutors being so willing to do anything for a guilty verdict. And it's one of the better stories in gaming, considering many of the full explanations you won't see coming. That said, the story does feel on rails it's not willing to deviate from, even when it makes sense. I mean, really, Phoenix, you couldn't have looked at that receipt earlier? Compared to the other games, what you'll do is a little more straightforward, but it establishes a formula early on and sticks to it. And even if the other games did the story part a little better, this one ends up being memorable just because it introduces a quirky, fun world and its assorted characters. With Phoenix's second game, little has changed. Aside from the expected new cases and characters, there's only slight tweaks to the gameplay. Penalties for presenting incorrect info is now variable based on how critically you need to get the right answer. People can be presented just like evidence, and thanks to a magatama you'll receive early on, you'll be able to tell if people are withholding information, leading to some court-like behavior out of court. I found the fact that you can only recover from penalties using this magatama investigation is a bit frustrating, but aside from that, I like these changes, so it's purely for storyline reasons I'm going to say this is weaker than the first game. See, that time the 4 cases you had were connected in such a way that there ended up being an overarching plot. Here, your 4 cases have nothing to do with each other, or the first game for that matter. Sure, you've got a couple that are notable in their own right. One manages to gloriously subvert a lot of the expectations you probably had about these cases, and you've got others that are just forgettable or more trouble than they're worth. If Ace Attorney was a TV show, these would be the filler episodes between the more plot-significant ones. I'm going to cut the review short on this game because there's not much to discuss. Gameplay-wise, it's exactly the same as its predecessor. You'll have a couple cases where you'll play as Phoenix's mentor, Mia, but she doesn't really play any differently. You'll get a couple weird jumps in logic where it's hard to tell what you should be doing, but that's my only complaint. It does, however, fix the story issues I had with the last game, with one final case that not only ties together the cases from this game, but could serve so well as a grand finale to the entire series to this point that if Mr. Wright and his friends never got another game, I could be okay with how it all ended.
Objection! This is called 1 Minute Rundown. You still have 30 seconds left to fill.
Hold it! This isn't the first time one of my reviews was less than a minute. Why am I only finding out now that that's not okay?
That's because they went live before I had a chance to review them. Those aren't any more acceptable than this.
I think what you're trying to say is that I've been messing up for a while. But what I'm reading is that you're not good at producing this show.
It doesn't matter! You are under contract to do 1 minute per game.
Objection! I have the contract right here, and there is nothing in here about a time limit.
And how did you get that?
Recall in episode 18, we had a guest in the form of one unknown player. At the end of that episode, he handed over a contract that misled him into a deal with a shady figure in order to save my soul. He said to consider it an extra life. Well, this is my extra life.
So what does that contract have to do with yours?
It was written on the back of it.
It was what?
I had to see it in black light to view it, but it's there, plain as day. 1 minute per game is a tradition, maybe a self-imposed challenge, but it is by no means an obligation. So, let's get back to the review now, okay?
Obviously, Ace Attorney didn't end with the last game, but Phoenix Wright did retire from practicing law, leaving a rookie apprentice named Apollo Justice in his place. Unfortunately, most of the cast of characters from before don't return here, and admittedly I do have a slight preference for the old cast, but that's not to say I don't like the new characters too. Apollo brings a few new tricks to the table. For the most part, it plays like the first Ace Attorney game, specifically the bonus case of it with the extras. Evidence goes from static images to fully 3D models, and frequently you'll get more information by examining it further, and there's a few cases where you'll get involved in the forensics. More notably, Apollo has a sort of psychic sense that allows him to pick up when someone's lying and pick out a nervous habit to press for more information, and it manages to use this more creatively than you'd expect without it coming off as too gimmicky. As far as story goes, the game still has its usual style of writing that goes in unexpected places, and there is a bit of a story arc going with why Phoenix left his previous job, but by the end it does feel like there's still a few questions left unanswered. Still, though, it's only slightly weaker than the original trilogy. Investigations is a side game starring prosecutor and fan favorite Miles Edgeworth, obviously. You'll still have your courtroom-style sparring, whose only significant change is that most of it takes place out of court, in less formal settings. Instead, you'll be assisting with the investigation on the initial sweep of whodunit, and sure enough, the methods you, as a player, will use have been completely revamped to go beyond simply controlling a cursor and a set of menu options. You'll have to search a room for clues using a more traditional adventure game interface, and sometimes connect unrelated thoughts to uncover new clues. Naturally, one of the strengths in the storytelling here is that it's the least formulaic game in the series, where you'll bounce quickly between investigation and confrontation. Further, the various cases are more directly connected to each other, but they do seem to drag too long, with the last two, while not necessarily bad, feel more drawn out than necessary. By the end, I felt more drawn to the lore surrounding a particular character than the actual cases. But the rest of the game is still worth checking out, and the new investigation style I wouldn't mind transplanting over to the main series. Back to the main series, let's combine the best of old and new. Phoenix is unretired, and Apollo is still around, both retaining their old skill set, and now they have an apprentice in the form of Athena Sykes. She brings forth a new skill. She's a psychology expert and is able to assess people's moods and feelings to get more information, which comes down to figuring out which emotional state isn't consistent with the testimony. The investigation sections here are streamlined considerably, since only certain rooms or locations need to be searched. That said, it does seem to do a bit too much hand-holding, as right before having to present something in court, it's pretty common to show flashbacks that point to exactly what you need, and during investigations you're pretty much prompted to present evidence when it's required. I suppose you could write this off as just reducing frustration towards what's essentially a storytelling medium, and figure anyone who's playing solely for that will appreciate the changes. And that story is as good as ever, including a pretty sizable number of red herrings and tricks to throw off genre-savvy players from guessing at exactly what happened. So yeah, consider me sufficiently impressed with this one. Professor Layton is a game consisting mostly of logic puzzles wrapped in a mystery story, so as far as crossovers go, it doesn't have to stretch too far, and for the most part it alternates between Professor Layton's style of exploring your location with puzzles thrown in every few minutes, and Phoenix Wright's usual courtroom antics. This time both are in a fantasy setting where you're working through witch trials, frequently involving Phoenix cross-examining multiple witnesses at once, where sometimes one witness will say something that will spark a reaction with another, but I can't help but feel the trials are a bit oversimplified. Even ignoring the hint system, it's pretty easy to figure out what to do next simply because there's relatively few options to present, and the testimony and free help you'll get is straightforward up until the end of the game. And while I didn't enjoy the change to a fantasy setting and the story surrounding the witch trials, the explanation for all of it spawned more questions than it answered. Layton's puzzle solving was enjoyable enough that I'm curious to play more of his games, though they did seem a bit on the easy side, so I feel this is probably going to go over best with fans of one series with passive interest in the other. And court for these games is now adjourned. There are a couple more games though. Ace Attorney Investigations got a sequel, though it doesn't look likely to get an official release outside of Japan, but does have a fan translation. Another spin-off is in the works as well, set in the past and starring an ancestor of Mr. Wright. If you want to try these, the original trilogy and Dual Destinies are fairly easy to find, having been re-released on multiple platforms, including cell phones, though Apollo Justice and Investigations are a bit less common. I recommend playing these games in the order they were released if you can. The games are perfectly playable otherwise, but will throw in spoilers for the games before them. And if you like these, you might also enjoy Ghost Trick, made by some of the same people, or other mystery visual novel series like Zero Escape and pretty much anything from Quantic Dream.
Check back soon for the next 1 minute rundown, featuring some
Objection! There won't be another 1 minute rundown.
What?
I told you before, you had one episode to beat me, and you spent the entire episode reviewing games.
But
I thought you could at least entertain me with this, but even now, the negatives are outweighing the positive. So I'm canceling this show, effective immediately.
no!
Wait, Caption Guy? I thought you were stuck to my old Let's Play videos. Well, no, I'm not. So then what? Well, yeah, but... Wait, really? I can do that? Hang on a sec. Time and place. I got it!
Are you done shouting yet?
No, Your Honor, I'm not. I mean, yes, but I'm not done yet.
I was just about to pass a verdict.
It's funny how often that happens, isn't it? But I do have something else to present.
Okay, maybe here's the entertaining thing.
Recall in episode 24, I was given a box by my guest host, Game Show Garbage. Would you like to know what was in that box? It was this, a simple flask of water. See? Nothing unusual, right? So you know what, the producer? You win. Here, have a drink. For your victory. Take that! That water was intended for the next episode, which you might remember was the second half of the Castlevania episode. That water wasn't just regular water, it was holy water! That contract you had, in addition to being completely phony, was forged by a demon, which means you have the same traits of evil!
You.
If you think that feels terrible now, just remember I still have a third part of the Castlevania episode to do, and I'm sure you know what kind of damage those can do there. So if you ever come back, all I need to do is switch to reviewing those, and then go straight to attacking your weak point, for massive damage!
No! No! No!
Gaming reviews done quick. We're not done this show yet. The 1 minute rundown. I'm OC Trinity, your host, and now we're playing with power. This time we're still here, aren't we?
Yes, Mr. Trinity, we are. I think you've stated a great case. You did a lot better than that other guy that's usually here. So, I guess I gotta pass the verdict of not guilty. But then again, I don't even know what you were on trial for today. So, what are you gonna do after this? Get a Lunchable?
Well, episode 30, of course. Check back soon for the next 1 minute rundown. Now that I'm not bound by rules or contracts anymore, we'll do something fitting for our 30th episode special. See you then, and remember, it's when times are tough that lawyers have to force their biggest smiles.